So I have finally seen the Fantastic Four, or the First Steps. And in this video, I'm going to be going ahead and diving into my spoiler review of this movie. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, turn back now or forever hold your peace. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and dive into full spoilers for this movie because I got a lot of thoughts about this movie. My nose is itching for some reason, but yeah. Let's go ahead and start off with the fact that this world is set outside of the MCU. This is not Earth 616 like it is in all the other Marvel movies that we've been getting. This is set in a new Earth that is called Earth 828. And the movie kind of starts off really strange because it doesn't open with the classic intro that we're all used to, with the cool music and the red background, the Marvel Studios logo, all that jazz. That's not the case with this movie. The way this movie starts is it kind of just has the logo in like that blue font that they've had in all of the marketing and everything for the Fantastic Four, where you have the Marvel logo in like that wavy kind of text, and then the Studios logo. It kind of just opens up like that, where it just simply has Marvel and then zooms out, and then it has Studios, and then you're just throwing right into the movie. So it's kind of interesting that they're changing things up, shall you say, because the Thunderbolts movie had the same type of thing where it had the similar starting point, with like the classic music and everything, but as the logo went on, it kind of changed to like this Void type of thing, obviously for the Void, and then for Captain America Brave New World, they had it where it was just simply the Marvel Studios and like this black and white text. So it's cool that they're changing up the intro and all that jazz, not keeping it the same boring intro. Because, yeah, over 37 MCU movies, it can get slightly boring from time to time when it's just the classic, like, logo. I'm pretty sure the last time we had, like, the full original Marvel Studios logo with the music and everything was Deadpool and Wolverine, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2024. So it has been a whole year since we have seen the original Marvel Studios logo. So, yeah, that's an interesting way that they started that movie. But, getting into the movie, I'm not so sure how I feel about it because, on one hand, you finally have this really good Fantastic Four movie, which is great because, the Fantastic Four one from 2005 was, never actually seen the 2005 or the 2015 Fantastic Four because, everyone was saying that they were just kind of bad or that they were so I never really bothered watching those previous two Fantastic Four movies. So I can't really speak too much on how those movies are, but yeah, it's good that according to the general audience that we finally have a good Fantastic Four movie. And for the most part, I had a pretty good time with it. If I had to rate it, I would give it like a, just trying to fix my shirt here, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. I think it is a decent Marvel movie. I think some people might be overhyping it a little bit because people are saying this is a return to like peak Marvel and all that jazz. I don't know if I would put it on that level of, peak Marvel. I think it is around the same, if not a little bit weaker than Thunderbolts, because I still really do enjoy Thunderbolts. I recently rewatched it later this month when it came out on streaming, so, and it is still a really good movie. It still holds up to this day, and Fantastic Four, on the other hand, I'm not too sure. I might have to give it a second watch somewhere down the line because I didn't see it in my hometown because it wasn't playing. I had to drive like 2 hours out to go see it. And so, yeah, when it comes to my hometown, which will probably be in 2 weeks or so, I'm not too sure, I'll probably give it a second watch and then have a more definitive answer on how I'm feeling. Because when I was watching it in the theater, I was like gassing this movie up. I was like, this movie is peak Marvel. It is great. And I was sitting there thinking, like, John Watts wishes he cooked this hard. And that part I still think kind of holds up because Matt Shackman, I think, did a pretty great job with this movie. And just thinking about what John Watts could do in this movie, I was kind of like, how would he have compared to Matt Shackman? Because Matt Shackman really did a great job with this movie. And Galactus is another thing that I want to talk about because I feel like they slightly underutilized Galactus. Like, he doesn't really do a whole lot. He just kind of sits in a chair, makes some vague threats, and then does nothing for like the second half of the movie. And then in the third act of the movie, he finally, shows up to Earth. And then he's kind of super small, but I think it's because he can alter his size. Because when you see him in his ship, when the Fantastic Four like go to negotiate with him, bro is like huge. Like he towers over them, and they're like looking up at him like, holy moly, bro is humongous. And so, yeah, that is when they negotiate to obviously, not have their Earth destroyed. And then Galactus is like, oh, if you give me your baby, then I will spare the Earth. And Sue Storm is like, that ain't gonna happen. And so Galactus is like, you chose death then. And then he shows up to New York City, walks around for a little bit, doesn't really do a whole lot, and then gets teleported away. That is how they defeat him. So yeah, he was kind of underutilized in this movie a little bit. Oh god, I don't know if I'm sick or something, but I feel like my throat is a little bit sore. So I don't know if I'm sick or what. But I'm struggling a little bit out here. But yeah. Anyways, Galactus, I feel like they could have used more. They could have maybe had it to where he shows up to Earth like super like giant because he can alter his size, and then show him like shrink down because when he shows up to Earth, he's not super big. Like he's kind of just as tall as like the buildings in New York City, if not like a little bit taller. So like he's not super huge when he shows up to Earth. So yeah, I feel like maybe they could have had him like show up to Earth and be like massive, like the size of like a celestial, and then they could have had him like shrink down. And he never once like uses any of his powers or anything like that because he has powers in the comics. Like he has powers. I guess the most that he does is he like threatens the Silver Surfer vaguely. Like he just vaguely threatens the Silver Surfer, and then that is pretty much all he does. He doesn't like use any powers or anything like that. He just kind of shows up to New York City, walks around for a little bit, and then Sue Storm uses her like, I don't know if it's like a force field or what, but she kind of just like pushes him back because basically they have this like plan that they figured out like how to do like teleportation, that kind of jazz. So they kind of figured that, oh, maybe we could take the Earth and we can teleport it away, which would have huge implications going forward because you need to have like the moon and things like that and the sun to be able to even sustain your Earth. So you can't just teleport it to a random spot. Although they do mention that they're going to teleport it to like a some different solar system. So maybe that way it could work good. But even if they do that, you can't have two Earths. Like that's what I was thinking of, because I was like, oh, they're gonna transport their Earth to the MCU Earth. I was like, okay, I guess that could make sense. But then I was like, oh, but then there would be two Earths in the MCU, and that wouldn't really work out all that well. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And then that plan doesn't end up working because they're literally like 6 seconds away from like the whole world like using their teleportation machine. But then the Silver Surfer shows up and she like damages like basically all of the teleportation devices that they have. So then they only have the one that's in New York City. So what they do is they decide that okay, we're going to teleport Galactus away, and we're going to lure him in with Franklin Richards because that's obviously who Galactus wants. So Galactus shows up to New York City. He walks around New York City for a little bit, and then because basically he's walking up towards the baby that's placed at like this teleportation machine. But then they swap out the baby, or like they take the baby out of the baby carriage that they have him in, and then Galactus is about to like cross the line, and then he's like, wait a second, I see through your plan, and then he doesn't go through with it, and then because they've taken him to the Baxter building, the baby obviously, and so then Galactus stops before he crosses the line to be teleported, and then looks over to the Baxter building and was like, oh, there's the baby, and then he walks over there, and then they just basically have to like push Galactus back, and Sue Storm basically pushes Galactus back using her like invisible powers and that type of thing, and it kind of makes me wonder that like none of the Fantastic Four characters really do anything, especially the Thing. Like, he's probably the most underutilized out of the four members because Reed Richards, he does do a little bit, he obviously figures out the teleportation thing, and then he, builds the machines and all that jazz, and then he also ends up saving Franklin Richards from Galactus, and it was one of the most easiest things in the world because he's like Galactus is holding the baby, obviously, to like, leave and all that. And then Ray Richards, he climbs up the buildings and all that, and then he just leaps, takes the baby, and then that's it, problem solved. And I was kind of just sitting there like, wow, that wasn't really all that hard, now was it? And then they end up defeating Galactus moments later. And then another thing that I feel like is kind of, unfortunate, I feel like I would have liked to see their Earth actually be destroyed because if you have this, like, alternate Earth, 828, why would you keep the Earth and then still have the Fantastic Four members go to the MCU? Because they're going to the MCU in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, so it's like they don't really have a reason to be going to Earth 616 if their Earth is fine, so it's kind of like, there was one thing that I think could have worked well, and that is with Johnny Storm, because he realizes that Galactus is obviously gonna, win, so he decides that he's gonna sacrifice himself so he can, like, push Galactus into the teleportation machine so that both him and Galactus would be teleported away. And so he, starts going towards Galactus, and then the Silver Surfer immediately pushes him out of the way, and then does it herself, where she sacrifices herself to defeat Galactus, because earlier in the movie, Johnny Storm realizes, or is, like, able to figure out the Silver Surfer's language that she speaks, because he does, like, research and all that, and he's able to figure out her language and her backstory and all that, and he figures out that the Silver Surfer Galactus was once going to destroy the Silver Surfer's planet, but she sacrifices herself to become the herald for Galactus, and that is how the planets are, like, marked for death and all that. It is the Silver Surfer who chooses what planets are, going to be destroyed and all that jazz. So she's basically the one who sacrificed herself so that Galactus would spare her planet. So that is what Johnny Storm finds out, and he kind of, like, uses it to, like, taunt the Silver Surfer. So she ends up helping them towards the end of the movie to defeat Galactus. But I feel like I would have liked it more if Johnny Storm was the one who sacrificed himself. That way it would have given the Fantastic Four, like, Ben, Reed, and Sue, it would have given them an actual reason to go to, like, either the X-Men universe or the 616 universe, even though they defeating Galactus, and that is because they're looking for Johnny Storm, obviously. So I feel like I would have liked that more than the Silver Surfer, but hey, I guess it all worked out in the end. And overall, this isn't a bad movie. This isn't me, like, trashing the movie, because there are some people out there who are saying this movie's trash, and that's terrible, it's awful. I don't think it's on that level. It's a pretty decent movie. It's a finally good Fantastic Four movie, other than the two ones that we've had before, which, according to most people, were pretty bad. So it's good that we finally have an actual good Fantastic Four movie. I just wish they maybe could have done a bit more with it. But yeah, those are just some of my nitpicks. Overall, I did like the dynamic between the team. I did like that, they didn't waste all that much time on their backstory, because we already know their backstory, so they didn't have to spend too much time on that. I did like that, although I wish not a whole lot of it got cut, because this movie is only an hour and 55 minutes. I wish it maybe could have been at least, like, 2 hours or something like that, because they did also cut out, like, John Malkovich from the movie, which is surprising. But yeah, overall, I think that's basically all I got for this movie. It was a pretty enjoyable movie. I think the one character I liked the most was probably Johnny Storm. I did like his character. He does probably get, like, the most to do, because he tries to, like, convince the Silver Surfer to join their side and all that, and, like, tries to, like, flirt with her and all that. So yeah, I think Johnny Storm definitely does get the most to do out of the whole team, while Ben is, like, the one who gets the least to do. But yeah, anyways, that is going to wrap it up for this video. You guys can let me know what you thought of the Fantastic Four if you have gotten around to seeing it yet. We are only 84 subscribers away from 700. We're at 616. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And next Marvel movie that we got looking forward to is Spider-Man Brand New Day, coming out July 31st of next year. So we gotta look forward to that. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.